Hello there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Samantha and this is my channel where I talk all about books. Anyway, today I'm coming to you with a video which is inspired by somebody else. So I want to say that before we continue on. Essentially, a little while ago, I saw a video on Instagram from Dylan's Reading, and I will link the reel down below. And basically in that video, he went through his whole TBR and gave every book on the TBR a rating out of 10 for how excited he was to read them. And in January, I want to start a TBR project. Like everyone else has done this year, I am going to try and work on my TBR next year. It was a goal for this year and it didn't work, so that's okay. At this point, I'm giving up and we're gonna start again in January. So yes, in January, I plan to start a year-long project to get my TBR down to 0, hopefully. Fingers crossed. So I thought that in advance of that, it would be fun to go through all of the books on my physical TBR and give them a rating out of 5 of how excited I am to read them. So that's what we're gonna do. And before I continue, can we appreciate my little Christmas setup? How cute is that? Oh my god, I haven't turned this on either. There we go. So cozy, so cute. All of the light up things on the bookshelf. So the amount of unread books on my TBR isn't crazy, but it is much higher than I would like it to be. My goal for the year was to get it down to 20, and instead I'm currently on 41. Obviously the year isn't over yet, and I probably have like 3 or 4 books from my physical TBR, which I'm hoping to read before the end of the year. But in case that doesn't happen, we'll be starting the year with 41 books, which is a lot. I was thinking I could do 3 books a month from the TBR, and then I would definitely get it down, but it might have to be more than that. It might have to be more like 4. It's quite a few books. So yeah, we've got 41 books on the TBR at the moment. In January, when we start with the first vlog for reading down the TBR, I will give you an updated figure. And we have some books which have been on my TBR since 2016 all the way up to 2024, which is a long time. That's actually kind of insane. I am quite ashamed about that, to be honest. To be fair, I did start my booktube channel in 2014. I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been like growing my collection since then. But yeah, 2016, that's pretty shameful. So I'm gonna go through in chronological order of like how long I've owned these, and we're gonna give my rating of excitement for how excited I am to read these. So one of the books I've owned the longest since 2016 is this little edition of Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And honestly, I'm gonna give this 1. I feel very bad saying that, but I do not read a lot of classics and I'm scared. And also it looks tiny, but I think it's actually like 500 pages or something. Yeah, it's 577 pages in this tiny little book. I'm gonna try and find the audiobook somewhere whenever this one comes up. But this little edition is so cute and it's so old. It has the price in shillings on it, but look at that little cover. Isn't this like the cutest little book? Shameful, and it's getting a 1 for excitement. The next 2 books I've also owned since 2016, and I really need to get to them. That is The Well of Ascension and also The Hero of Ages. It's too far up the shelf. I can't reach it because I'm really short. But these are books 2 and 3 in the first generation Mistborn trilogy. I loved Mistborn when I read it. Sorry, The Final Empire, the first book. I loved it when I read it, and I read like a good chunk of this book. I want to say I read like 200 pages, but I had a lot going on at the time, so I couldn't really focus on it. And that was last year. I ended up like DNFing it for now with the intent to come back. And now it's been like 3 years since I've read The Final Empire, and I'm like, okay, I need to reread The Final Empire before I can continue on. So this gets a 4 because I am very excited, but also I need to reread The Final Empire first, and that's a little bit intimidating. And also it's a little bit intimidating because it's chunky, but I know I loved the first book, so I have high hopes for this one. So yeah, this one gets a 4, and same for The Hero of Ages. Okay, now we skip 4 years and we move on to books that I've had since 2020. So the first one of those is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Last Hours trilogy, and I've had it since 2020 and I still haven't read it, but I will be reading it soon, hopefully. I've heard mixed reviews about the rest of the series, so honestly, in terms of excitement for this, it's probably like a 3 out of 5. I know I'll probably have a good time, but I don't have like 5-star expectations with this book. The next one, also from 2020, is So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. I do really want to read this very soon. It's really bad that I haven't read it already. I'm ashamed, as I should be. And for this one, I'd say a 4 out of 5. I really want to read it. I want to be more educated on this topic, so I'm excited to read this one, learn more. Excited is maybe not the right word, but you know what I mean. Now we're moving on to books from 2022. I got a lot of books in the last 2 years because I worked in a library and we got rid of a lot of books, and I took them home because they were just going to go into the recycling. So I rescued them and I've barely read any of them. It's bad. It's real bad, but okay. So firstly, we have The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. When I got this, I didn't realize that this was the sequel to The Bear and the Nightingale. I just recognized the author and I was like, oh, I know her, let me take it. But it's actually the second book in a series. I do have The Bear and the Nightingale on my Kindle, so big plans. I really want to read this ASAP actually, because I feel like it's a really good wintry book. So I'm gonna give this a 4. Next, another one, which is actually a sequel and I didn't realize, is The Masked City by Genevieve Cogman. This is like a historical, fantastical crime book, and because it's actually the second book in a series, I don't know how excited I am, but like it sounds really good, but I just don't know if I need to read the first one first. I think probably. So because of that, it's probably like a 3 out of 5 on excitement. I'm not excited. I'm just not excited about the prospect of having to read another book first. You know what I mean? Another one from the library that we're getting rid of is Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. I spoke about this in my TBR for November and I haven't read it yet, but I'm gonna be reading it in November. I hope. Like shortly after this video goes up, I should be reading it. Am I excited? No. I'm still not excited, but I would say like a 3 out of 5 because when I actually read the synopsis, I was like, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. But because of the video concept I'm reading it for, that's what concerns me. I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Okay, the next one I do own, but again, it's on the shelf that I can't reach, so I'm gonna have to insert the cover, but it's City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. I'm so sorry, I feel like I'm giving out so many 3s, but I am excited to read it. But the problem is it's historical fiction, which I love, but for some reason I never pick it up. Like I always am so hesitant to pick it up, but I actually have the audiobook out from the library at the moment, so I should read this like ASAP, but I'm not that excited to read it, which doesn't make sense because I read a nonfiction by the same author and I loved it. So I don't know why I'm so hesitant about this one, but yeah, it's getting a 3. Next is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. This is the 3rd book in the Nevermore series, which was originally a trilogy, and then she has since written a new book, which hasn't come out yet. It kept on getting pushed. So I think it's now coming out in spring of next year, I want to say. I'm gonna give this a 4. You know, I liked the second book a lot, and hopefully I'll read this very soon actually because I just reread the first book and then read the second book. So I should read this soon so that I remember everything that happens. The next one I have is Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I'm gonna give this a 2. I am just so concerned about Riley Sager's books because I've never read anything and I've always been curious but also like so scared because I just don't know if I'm gonna shit my pants while I read this. Like I don't know if it's scary or just eerie and like thrilling or if it's actually like I'm gonna be afraid, you know? Oh, by the way, we've actually moved on to books from last year, from 2023, from City of Girls onwards. That's been from 2023, so not that long ago, but still pretty shameful. The next one is For the Winner by Emily Hauser. I am intrigued. It's a Greek mythology retelling. I thought this was the second book in a series. I think maybe it's like the second book in a companion series because I'm not actually seeing anything in the front about the first book. So I hope it's fine to read this without having read the other book. I'm gonna do a little bit more research, but in general, it's probably like a 3. Next one, similarly, another Greek mythology retelling is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I am intrigued about this one. I'm pretty sure it's won awards and it's supposed to be amazing. I've heard like really good things about Pat Barker's writing in general, but a friend of mine did read this and she said it was a very difficult read, so maybe it's like a 2. Next, we have another classic, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm gonna give this a 2. I think I'll like it and it's very like cozy. I feel like it's like a good cozy vibe. However, it's so long. Why is it so long? It's like 500 pages long. Why? To be fair, the margins are pretty big, so like there's that. But yeah, I'm gonna try and find the audiobook somewhere, I think, whenever the time comes to read this. This is another one that I feel like should be read in winter. Next, we have another historical fiction, and that is A Long Petal of the Sea by Isabel Allende. I'm actually really excited to read this because I read a book by her in 2022. No, actually it was last year. It was last year that I read it. That's not important, but I always care too much about the details. But yeah, I read a book by her last summer. I also studied some of her work at uni and I really like her writing style and I'm always trying to read more historical fiction, so I'm gonna give this a 4. I'm excited. Next, we have another crime book, and that is The Graves of Whitechapel by Claire Evans. I took this one from the library purely because the cover is so stunning. This might be the most beautiful book I own. It is beautiful. It's set in Victorian London and some murders start happening. I did start reading this a long time ago, but I was kind of in a reading slump already when I started it, so I didn't really enjoy what I read, but it was literally the first chapter. So maybe like a 3, a tentative 3. on excitement levels. I'm gonna give it another go. The next one is another crime book set in Victorian London, I believe, and that is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. I don't know why I took this one home from the library. I think because I recognized the author name, and I think this was already on my Goodreads TBR for some reason, like probably hearing someone talk about it, but I don't actually know anything about it, so I'm gonna give it a 2. Okay, this next one I actually bought with my own money last summer, and that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I was really excited to read this when I bought it. I don't know what it was, but that day I was like, this book is coming home with me. Since then, I've heard that it's quite boring, so I have not picked it up, and I keep meaning to, but I don't do it. So I'm gonna give this a 2. Next, we have Mother Tongue, The Surprising History of Women's Words by Jenny Nuttall. I bought this at the same time that I bought She Who Became the Sun, and I am very excited to read this. I just feel like I kind of took a break from reading nonfiction about language because I read so much of it at one point, or like any nonfiction book I read was always about language because I'm fascinated by language. If you didn't know, I'm an English teacher, so you know, I like language. I love how it works. And obviously I'm a woman, so this topic is important to me. So I'm gonna give this a 5. I'm very excited to read this. And you know what? Who cares that I only read nonfiction about language? That's what I'm interested in. Okay, we're going back to some books that I got from the library. This one is Away with the Penguins by Hazel Pryor. I'm pretty sure this is about a grumpy old woman who hates everyone, and she comes across some penguins. That's kind of what I've gathered by it, and I love penguins, and I'm also grumpy even though I'm not an old woman. So you know what? I haven't heard anyone talk about it. That's what concerns me, but I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm tentatively so excited to read this. Okay, the next one, also from the library, is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I am so concerned about this one because I know the topic is very difficult, and I just don't typically read a lot of like literary fiction. I'm not excited to read this, to be honest. I'm not excited. I think I will read it, and I think it's going to be a really good read. In terms of like eagerness to read it, it's like a 2. And I don't know if I'm going to necessarily enjoy my experience reading this, but I think it's going to be worth a read, if that makes sense. Like a 2, but not because I think it's gonna be a bad book. It's just because I think the reaction it's gonna bring for me is gonna be difficult, and sometimes you have to be in like the right headspace for it. So that's why. The next one that I've got is The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. This is another ex-library book. I am going to give this a 1, which probably seems very harsh. I have read and loved a book by Kate Quinn. It is this book right here, The Rose Code. This is one of my favorite books. I freaking love this book. And I've read a couple other books by her, but they haven't been the same level as The Rose Code. Anyway, and I started reading this book on my phone in the library a few years ago, and I just could not get into it. So that's why I'm giving it such a low rating, because I have tried already and stopped. But then we were getting rid of it at the library, and I was like, well, I know I love one of her books, so I feel like I want to give more of her stuff a try. So I think I'll try it on audio if I can. But yeah, in terms of like reading it, it's a 1. I'm not excited at all. You might be thinking like, if you're not excited, why are you keeping it? And it's because I think I'll like it. I'm not like itching to read it, you know, but I want to own it and read it at some point, but it's not one that I'll pick up if I have other options. I don't know, maybe I should be getting rid of some stuff, but I won't. All right, the next one that I have is actually a gift that I got last year. If somebody gets me a book for my birthday or Christmas, it's like a goal of mine to read it before the end of the next year, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. Anyway, but one of the books I got last year was Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, which I really do want to read before the end of the year because I think the sequel comes out early next year. I'm gonna give this a 4. Another one that I got as a gift last year is The Fragile Threads of Power by byeeee Schwab. Really want to reread the A Darker Shade of Magic series before I read this. So in terms of this book itself, my excitement is probably like a 3, but my excitement to reread the original trilogy first is like a 5. I can't wait to do that, but it's gonna be a while before I actually get to this, so I feel like I'm not letting myself get too excited about it. Okay, so all of the books from here on out are books that I've bought or acquired this year. So I haven't had them for that long. First of all, we have Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I'm planning to read it in November. I don't know if that's gonna happen because it's like the 21st right now. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'm very excited for this one. You know what? I would say I'm a 5 for this one. Okay, the next ex-library book I have is The Inheritance by Robin Hobb and Megan Lindholm. This is an anthology of short stories set in the same world as the Assassin's Apprentice series. Yeah, this is an anthology of stories set in that world. So I haven't even started that. So my excitement for this one is a 1. because I haven't read anything, so I'm not going to be reading this anytime soon. Okay, I have another one which I can't reach because I'm short, and that is Powerful by Maisie Hill. I very fortunately got an arc of this earlier this year, and I have not read it, which is very bad, and I'm very sorry. I will hopefully be reading it before the end of the year, but in terms of my excitement, it's like a 2 out of 5 because it's like a self-help book, and I think at the time when I requested it, I was very excited about the topic, and now I still am, but I'm just like, do I want to be helped or do I want to just suffer? I don't know. So it's a 2. Next, I have a few language books. So first I have How Language Works by David Crystal, which is a pretty comprehensive book about how babies babble, words change meaning, and languages live or die. I honestly am very excited to read this because this has been referenced so much in my studies. So I'm excited to read it. Also, I already said I'm a language nerd, so I would give this like a 4. The only thing that's putting me off is its length. I also have another David Crystal book that is Spell It Out, The Singular Story of English Spelling. This one is probably like a 3. I'm still very excited to read it. I think it's an interesting topic for me to like learn more about so that I can, you know, tell students little fun facts if they need them and things like that. 3 out of 5. And the last one I've got is Eats, Shoots, and Leaves by Lynn Truss, and this is all about punctuation. Sounds like it would be really boring, but I'm actually tentatively excited. I'd say it's a 3. All right, now we're moving on to books from my most recent book haul. So the excitement for these is probably going to be much higher than all of the other books. So first of all, we have You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. This is getting a 5 for excitement. I really want to read this. It sounds like What Happens in Vegas, that movie, but in a book form, and I can't wait. I'm just not really in a super like romance mood at the moment, so I'm not gonna read it yet, but my excitement is 5 out of 5. Next, we have Circe by Madeline Miller. This one is one that I'm never really excited to read, but I wanted to own it and I want to read it, but it's just one of those like similar situation to some of the other books I already mentioned where like I either need to be in the perfect mood for it, or like I just only will read it if I'm like forced to read it or if it's like the only option I have, but like I want to read it. I'd say it's like a 3. Next, we have Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. This is actually 2 books in one, but this one is a 5. I'm so excited to start the series. I think it will definitely be next year. It's not going to happen before the end of this year, but I cannot wait. It sounds so fun, and I'm really in such a fantasy mood at the moment, so 5. Talking of fantasy, we also have Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This one is a 5. I didn't really know what it was about when I bought it, and I read the description, and now I just cannot wait. I think this might be my first book of the year next year. Next, we have Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. I would say this is like a 4 because I haven't heard a ton about it since it's come out, but I heard a lot about it before it came out, so I feel like my excitement has died down a little bit, but it's still a 4. Like, I still think I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'm excited to get to it. Next, we have another book that I can't reach, but it is the Sherlock Holmes book that I hauled the other day. This one, I'd say, is like a 2. It's one of those ones which like I want to read in my lifetime, but I'm not like, oh my god, I have to read it right now, you know? Okay, we're almost done. We have my Jane Austen box set, which has Emma, which I haven't read, and for Emma, I'd say I'm like a 4 on the excitement. Pride and Prejudice, I have read. Love. Sense and Sensibility, I recently watched the movie for this for the first time, and I actually really enjoyed it, so I would say that's also a 4. Mansfield Park, I don't really know much about, so I'm gonna give that a 3. Northanger Abbey, also I don't know anything about, so also a 3. And then Persuasion, I don't know anything about, but that's gonna get a 4. And for Emma and Sense and Sensibility, I actually have 2 copies of those books, so I really should read those ASAP. And finally, the latest book that I've hauled, and one that I'm actually gonna be reading very soon, is Malice by John Gwynne. And I would say that this is probably like a 4 in terms of excitement. I am very excited. However, the books are quite long, and I know I'm committing myself to a high fantasy series where people are probably gonna die, but I'm still really excited, so, you know, 4. But anyway, those are all of the books on my physical TBR. I've been filming for quite a while. It feels like there are tons, and you know, 41 is quite a lot. I'm kind of ashamed of myself, but you know, there are a decent amount of classics within that, and I feel like I just never pick up classics, so fair enough. but some of them are kind of shameful. I would like to rectify them being on my TBR very soon. And by that, I mean I want to read them. That was such a weird way to phrase that. But anyway, that is all that I have for this video. So I hope you liked it. If you did, please hit a thumbs up. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe down below. And please let me know down below if there are any books that I gave a low excitement rating that you think I'll really enjoy. Or like if it's like your favorite book, tell me why it's better than I'm expecting it to be. And if you made it all the way to the end, could you leave me a little house emoji for my little Christmas houses? But yeah, that's all that I have for this video. So I'll see you very soon with another one. Bye.